we on?
Yeah.
So, tomorrow is 1st of May 1915, and it will be the left hand.
Look, for the 100th time, a Serbian shoot an Austrian in fucking Bosnia. Why do we have to go and invade France?
I'm sorry. You know, I get upset. I'm Johannes. I look older than my 22 years, and I'm from Stuttgart. I'm a printer by trade, and I've worked on my local paper since I left school. And going to war was a serious thing. They tell us we have to sign up to fight the Russians. I could go with that, that seemed okay. And we had to fight the French. Well, my granddad fought the French 40 years ago, and that's not too difficult. But they told me we also had to hate the English. And that I found a bit strange, because my uncle Carl has been living in England for many years. He's an artist in London. And it seemed a bit odd, but I guess they have a big empire, they want our colonies, and that's why we Germans have to fight. Anyway, I sign up, and I'm enrolled. And they give me this wonderful coat. It's a great, great coat. And it is nice and warm. And now I am Musketeer Johannes Bartels, 13th Corps, 125th Division Infantry. And off we go. And I was situated at the south end of the line, near Verdun. And I watched as our armies sweep through France, victorious after victorious. And then suddenly they reach Paris, and the film rewinds, and they get chased all the way back to Belgium, and we have to go to help. And we have to get into trains. You think the Germans are efficient, but they aren't. And I got lost, and I team up with a lot of Saxons, who I hardly speak their language, but they are still German. And we end up in this part of the line near Armentieres, Flugstedt. And we are digging in the trenches, because the fighting, the running fighting, has stopped. And I see the British and the French digging trenches as well. And they're not fighting at us at that point, we're not fighting at them, we're digging in trenches, and those become quite like home. They told us that we will be back home before the leaves fall. But the leaves are falling and we are nowhere near home. Anyway, it comes to December time and the gifts start to pour in. A full cigar case from the Kaiser. A pipe from the Crown Prince with his head on the pipe bowl. You can imagine where we thought of putting that. And brandy, more than you could imagine. And other forms of gifts from our royalty. It was really rather like home. They never used to give me that in peacetime. And suddenly, I see coming through the supply trenches from the back, swish, 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 swish. It's Christmas trees. Little Christmas trees and candles. And they even sorted out the weather for us, because the sun came out and the sun dried up the mud which we got everywhere. And that is how we spent December. We Germans, we keep Christmas. We specialize on Christmas Eve. And on the evening of Christmas Eve, we are sitting round with the food that has come from the back and smoking our cigars and drinking our brandy. And we start to sing, as we always do, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. Well, yes, you get the idea. And as we finish singing, there is applause from the people we were trying to kill yesterday, the British. They are clapping, and we say to them, come on Tommy, give us a song. And they come back with a few songs about First Noel and some song about Leicester Square that I'd never heard of. And eventually we exchange songs and end up with one we can all sing, Adeste Fideles, Come Ye Faithful. Venite adoremus, venite. Again, you get the idea. And amid all this, we suddenly realized that and we say to each other that we are Saxons and you are Anglo-Saxons, and we will meet tomorrow in no man's land. We will be all together in no man's land, and we will wish each other a Merry Christmas. And with that alcoholic sentiment, we all retire to bed. The next morning, we get up and we are nursing a big hangover. And as we sit eating our egg and toast, we realize that we can hear the birds singing. I'd not heard a bird sing for 3 months. And we realize that the artillery has not been firing since yesterday. And suddenly Wilhelm, our machine gunner, gets up on the top of the trench with the Christmas trees and looks over, and we said, "Get down!" But suddenly we realize that nobody is shooting at him. And come to that, we're not shooting at anyone ourselves. And slowly but surely, we all start to look over the top of the trench, and we see people at the other end looking over the top of the trench. And one by one, we get out and we walk towards the other line. I had run that journey a few times to try to attack them, but this time it was different. And we start to talk. Now, of course, our generals are not in favor of this. They have an international conference and they decide that, yes, we will have a short truce to bury our dead and then we will resume war. We do indeed spend some time burying our dead. There are many dead out there lying on the cold frost, and we dig shallow graves in the hard earth, and we sit and stand side by side, khaki and grey, and stand to honour the men who have died there. And I was thinking myself, how many of those men did I shoot that I now bury? But then the serious bit is done, and it is still, the sun is still up, it's still Christmas Day, and we and Tommy, we start talking, slowly but surely. Some of us were in England before, and so we know their language and they know a bit of ours. And we start sharing our gifts. People go back and bring. We brought a bottle of beer which we had liberated from the nearby brewery. That went down quite well. And slowly but surely the game started. The photographs were brought out to show. And, well, yeah, there was a game of football, as you may know. I would like to say that I played and scored the winning goal, but it's not true. I will own up to you that I thought it was not so good to play football on a place where people had died, and where they will be dying again probably next week. But there was a game, many people took part, and the Germans won, 3-2, I believe. It was the first time that Germany had beaten England at football, and I guess it will never happen again. I got talking with a couple of guys who spoke a bit different from the others, and eventually they told me they were from Liverpool, or Liverpool as I would call it. And they showed me a copy of their local paper they had found quite funny. I have a copy of it here. The Liverpool Echo of the 19th of December 1914. It says this: the Allies have made a slight advance in the region of that's crap, they've been here for weeks. And I pulled out my copy of the Allgemeine sent to me from where I was printing at home. It says that we were making slight advances in this area. So we can't both be right. In fact, we've both been here stuck for weeks. None of that was true. And we agreed at our little informal international gathering that all our newspapers were, as they said, utter shite. And then suddenly, it dawned on me why I had heard of the place. And I said to them suddenly, hey! I was getting the language, you see. Hey! You know those birds? What? That big building you have opened only just lately. That Liefers building. The Liver building. Yes, yes. Well, the birds at the top, my uncle, Carl Bartels, he made them. He designed them. Well, they hardly believed that, but they sent away to one of their friends, Liam, who said, yes, it's quite right. Carl Bartels, sculptor in London, German, designed the birds on the top of the Liver building. Well, they were, as they said, made up to hear that, and they went away and got a bottle of some very expensive French liqueur that they had liberated in France, and that is all I remember of that day. And that was the end of Christmas Day for me. But then, of course, came the next day. What do we do then? Because it was the same people in the trenches who we'd made friends with. And were we really going to go back to fighting them all of a sudden? And we reached a deal with them because we had our own high-ups, our high commands were telling us to fight. We would just fire over their heads. We would tell them, hey Tommy, we have a general coming at 11 o'clock. That's 10 o'clock your time. Keep your head down for an hour, we have to fire. And we would do that. And they'd say, oi Fritz, our top brass is here at 2 o'clock. Keep your head down, will you? And we would do that, and that is how we survived for several weeks, for nearly Easter time. I then got moved in the line. I got sent back to my proper regiment, and we were near a place called Ypres, which where the fighting was a bit different, and this is something that happened last week. Would you like to hear the story of last week? I'll take that as a yes. It was a different type of thing altogether, where we had the same idea that we would run at the trenches and try to capture them, and it would never work. And on this day, we indeed ran over in the morning, tried to capture the trench, which was full of French, and I think it was black guys. They must have been Moroccans or Algerians. And it didn't work, again. And when we came back, suddenly in the afternoon, I hear this sound, swish, 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 in the trenches coming up from the back. And I think, no, this cannot be Christmas trees in April, it does not work. But actually, it was big barrels, metal barrels, they were bringing from the back to the front. And we were told, like we had done with the Christmas trees, to put them on top of the trench so they would face towards the other side. And as we put them up, and we had no idea what they were, suddenly I see on the outside written the word chlorine. What on earth is going on? Because we use chlorine in the print shop for thinning the ink, and they tell us to be very, very careful with it. I do not like to be too scientific, but the chlorine gas, it mixes with the air, with the water in your throat and in your nose and your eyes, and it turns to acid. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we all obeyed the order, and we undid the taps on those gas cylinders, and the cloud of the gas came out of the cylinders and went like a mist towards the other trenches. And as it got to the other trenches, the French and Moroccans and Algerians and any other poor bugger that was there started to breathe it in. And the gas mixed with their mouth and their nose and their eyes and turned into acid. And as it turned into the acid in their lungs, they coughed. And as they coughed, they breathed in, and they breathed in more gas, and the gas turned to acid. And they started running around and coughing and coughing and coughing. And they ran around more, and they could not do anything. They cried out for help, and no one could do anything. And finally, they went back in their trench and they stopped coughing. And I will not do any more of this. I cannot fight. I made friends on Christmas Day, and now I'm being told to gas people. It cannot happen. They said, the newspapers say that our high command did not know what to do. That they thought no one would be killed by letting off poison gas in their direction. Well, that is nonsense. We have the best scientists in the world. They knew what they were doing, and they told us to go and capture the next trench. But we did not move. We would not move because we knew if we went in that trench, we would be gassed. So we could not do that. And so we stayed there, and the moment passed. And that is why it will be the left hand tomorrow. I would like to be a person who stood up and said, no, don't fight. But they would shoot me. I would like to run away back to Stuttgart. But they would find me. You can't get away in here. And they would shoot me. And if I got home, my family would send me back. So the only way out, it will be the left hand tomorrow morning. An accident when I'm cleaning my rifle. A nice hole through the palm. They'll send me back home. My family will say, that's a very good war wound you got there, Johannes. Congratulations. Maybe it will heal by the time the leaves fall, and maybe the war will be over by then. But I made many friends in no man's land on Christmas Day, and I'm not going back.